Warning: this stream is rated for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? It is a fun, fantastic day here at the WandaNetDomesticShelters.org Theater. This is RCADE, Nostalgia Memories Podcast, and I am surrounded by 10 million people at the time. This is a very special episode because we have three different gamers that are presenting three different games, and it's insane, it's bonkers, it's out of the basket, and we had no clue what's going on. And we just got another raid. So first of all, thank you, Angle Doom, for the raid, and our second raid is Nib coming in. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do not know me, actually, I'm going to wait a second on that because they're probably half of them are getting roll ads or something.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm going to talk about our sponsor. WandaNet is our sponsor this month, and you too can be a sponsor of the EBC channel by visiting our website. That's www.ebc2021.com, and subscribing to the Patreon at the $10 level. And all you have to do is contact me, and we will set you up as a sponsor of the EBC channel. And basically, the $10 level gets you at least a month where you are the sponsor and you can present whatever cause you like or something you want to draw attention to in the world, and we'd be happy to do that for you. So our sponsor this month is WandaNet, and she would like to direct you to domesticshelters.org, which is a fantastic tool for going on and searching your address and finding your local domestic violence shelter. And all of the local domestic violence shelters basically have wish lists, and they say these are the items we need for the survivors of domestic violence that we have in our care at the moment. There are certain items like toothpaste and toothbrushes and deodorant and soap and hats and gloves and socks and things like that that are always necessary, towels, but you do want to check with your local domestic violence shelter because they will have a list of what they specifically need, small things that you can donate that really do make a difference. And of course, our sponsor, WandaNet, thanks you for your interest, and please just go check out domesticshelters.org, and they will give you all the information you need on that. RCADE Nostalgia Memories Podcast. This is season 1, episode 8, and we are graced by the presence of the GamingAvengerz, all 3 of them at the same time in different locations around the world. I think Abby is in Switzerland incognito at the moment. So yeah, we're very happy to have everybody here at the same time and get it all coordinated and make it happen. So I really appreciate you. Now, to my right is the ecstatic co-host of RCADE, who wears a whole bunch of hats. And the hat changes every episode, so you want to make sure that if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, you stop by. Seriously, the hats are worth the entire subscription price of $0. So if you stop by, we do the live broadcast of the podcast about every 2 weeks, sometimes 3. It really depends on like scheduling, and we've got all sorts of in real life stuff going on. Aside from being able to present different gamers with their favorite games and things like that, you get to see Cage, and that's entirely worth it in my opinion. So the GamingAvengerz all together. We've got Ben, we've got Abby, we got Isaac. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
How are you?
I'm plugging along. I'm here. I'm freshly shaved and I'm ready to go. So
fair enough.
And Isnib with the raid. Welcome, my fine sir, from across the pond. How are you doing, sir? And all of the fine folks that came with you, and Doom, who rated us at the beginning, thank you so much for joining us. If you do not know me, my name is Scotty, also known as EBC, also known as Cheap Knockoff Jabba the Hutt. And what I do is I present a whole bunch of weird, random stuff that isn't normally seen on Twitch. We do public domain movie nights. We do this fine podcast here. We do all sorts of weird stuff that if you want to follow us and check out what's happening on the EBC channel, I just suggest that you go to the website, which is www.ebc2021.com, and that's where I keep my schedule, and I update it as often as possible to actually reflect what's going on, including delays and in real life stuff that causes changes in the schedule and all that good stuff. So that's basically all the information we have for that. All right, so GamingAvengerz. We got 3 games today. It's actually going to be a longer podcast because we're going to cover 3 games and a couple of extra stuff at the end. You're not going to want to leave early. I've got some special stuff just for you at the end of the podcast, so stay tuned. So let's come on over here. And the 3 games that are going to be presented, first off, we're going to start with Abby, who is presenting The Last of Us. Then her husband Isaac, who right now is below her on the screen in his proper position, he's going to be presenting Donkey Kong 64, and then the heroic leader of the Gaming Avengers, Benjamin, is going to be presenting his game Mega Man X. So stay tuned. We're going to have all three games. It's going to be kind of like a shortened form where instead of giving an hour to one person, we're going to be doing 3 half-hour segments approximately, and it's going to be lots of fun. So let's, we're getting used to a little bit different format. We're going to take a quick, short commercial break, even though we just started, and then jump right into Abby's playthrough of The Last of Us. So stay tuned.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're jumping right into it. The first playthrough is Abby presenting her game, The Last of Us. Let's start right away with Cage. Can you give us some background on the game here?
Absolutely. So The Last of Us originally launched on the PlayStation 4 on Friday, June 14th, 2013. That day also had some famous people celebrating their birthdays. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, pop singer Boy George, and actress Lucy Hale all celebrated their birthdays that day. The game came out to a great critic review. It ended up garnering a 95 out of 100 on Metacritic, with some highlights being a 9.5 from Game Informer, 8 out of 10 from GameSpot, 10 out of 10 from IGN. The game being a brand new IP for Sony Entertainment ended up selling 1.3 million copies in the first week, 3.4 million within 3 weeks, making it the best-selling game of 2013. It ended up selling over 20 million copies by October 2019 overall, in between the regular game and the remastered release on the PlayStation 4. So there's a little bit about the history of The Last of Us.
All right. So we've got this opening scene here. That when you sent me this playthrough, I thought it was pretty gritty and a little bit intense. Definitely some Walking Dead vibes. But I really enjoyed the cutscene basically that describes this, and this is the opening of the game, correct?
Yeah, it's within the first 15 minutes, I believe.
Okay. All right, so Abby, why don't you tell us more about like the storyline and what kind of a gameplay experience this is?
So the storyline of this game is you have to essentially, and I believe it shows up later in the playthrough pretty shortly at the beginning because they got to set you up for the game. You have to take this young girl named Ellie at first you have to take her to the Capitol building, and then you realize, okay, well, crap happened, and now, you need to take her farther than that. And you have to take her farther than that. And the reason, she needs to go to these places because she's immune to this virus that has completely overtaken the whole world.
Oh.
And it's like a fungus, and the monsters, the zombies in this game are just gross and they're terrifying. But you have to deliver her because she's immune. And they think that they can reverse engineer a vaccine from her. So you have to deliver her to all these different places. And throughout the game, you develop this really close bond with this little girl. Because right at the beginning of the game, Joel, the character you play as for 90% of the game, loses his daughter right at the very beginning. During like the initial outbreak. And so he forms this connection with Ellie, and it's really sweet, and I love it.
That kind of scenario reminds me of Cage, what's the movie where there's no children? Like somebody set off a biological weapon and there's no children under the age of like 18 or 19. And there's war and all sorts of stuff, and then I remember the main character's name is a young black woman named Key, I think, and she has a baby, and she's like the first woman that has a baby in this childless world now. Do you remember that, Isaac? You're shaking your head, yeah. No, you're just shaking your head, yeah.
You shaking his head.
I watched the movie once.
Yeah, I
I
can't.
vaguely do remember it. Ronathan is in chat. He's suggesting that
Children
it
of
might be
Men.
Children
Yes,
of Men.
yes, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Ronathan is the movie buff. Why the fuck aren't you on the podcast, Ronathan? You know. So yeah, that storyline, just as you were describing it, was reminding me of Children of Men. How it's the kind of like the scenario where you've got this one person you're trying to protect and get to the place they need to be in this world
Right.
that's destroyed and falling apart, and it's difficult as hell because nobody is understanding the severity of it and the necessity of it.
Right.
So
Yeah. And you deal with a lot more than just zombies in this game too. You also deal with like actual people, which makes it worse because they're trying to take your supplies, they're bandits, they're trying to kill you, they blah blah blah, all these different reasons.
It's just like in real life, people are the actual worst.
Yeah.
Yes. People are the scary ones. The zombies just want to eat you. Like, okay.
So where does the storyline go towards the end of the game? If you're trying to get this girl to what, DC or
So you're trying to get her, I believe if I remember correctly, it's Washington. Like states, like Seattle.
Mhm.
I think. I want to say Seattle. I could be wrong. I know at one point you go through Salt Lake City
Okay.
or like Nevada, that area.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, so you get her to the first location, this lab that she needs to go to. And then you realize that everybody in the lab is dead. So then you have to go through, find where to take her, and then you have to take her to a farther location, which is the base of this, like, I almost want to say, like, rebel militia group. They're called the Fireflies.
Mhm.
You have to bring her to that second lab. And there's moments in the game where you play as Ellie because Joel is really, really injured. That whole section is extremely, like, heartbreaking. He's not dead, but he's really, really injured, and she gets, like, kidnapped by this whole big group, and you're like, oh, okay, well, they're not that bad, and then you realize that they're all cannibals.
Oh, jeez.
It's crazy. They did no reservations in this game.
Well, and
But it was,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, The Walking Dead, 28 Days Later, like, you know, you know, in that whole series, how, you know, you got the militia that's basically deciding they're
Yeah.
going to repopulate the world by raping the women, and you know, I think that's a hallmark of these types of storylines in our modern day. Like, even just within the last 10 years, in Walking Dead, how shocked everybody was when Negan killed Glenn. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going, dude, that's just the storytellers trying to impress upon you just how brutal Negan actually is. We're not gonna, you know, disguise it or try to play it down just because, you know, maybe this person over here thinks that's not supposed to be an entertainment. But, you know, you want to tell a story and you want to be accurate in just how dire the situation is or something like that. You
Absolutely.
You should leave that stuff in. And if the game developers, you know, are starting to realize that with the storyline and say, okay, how can we, you know, push this societal envelope by leaving in all the stuff that otherwise would have been taken out because, you know, in the past that just wasn't a thing.
Right. Absolutely.
So, how would you say this story in particular has impacted you?
I mean, it's not something that I'm gonna take into my daily life and be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But, like, it also, there's pieces of it where you're like, oh, wow, that's, you know, design choices and, like, you know, you start the game by carrying your daughter because she's broken her ankle and then she ends up dying.
Right.
Later on, right at the end of the game, you're carrying Ellie in the exact same way. It's like very like touching, and it's something that you do take out of the game away from you. Like the game was over and I remember just sitting there for like 20 minutes like, what? Huh? It's over?
Wow.
And they've set you up for a sequel by the end. By the time I played it, like maybe a year after it was released, they had already set you up for a sequel. They already knew it was coming. But like there's still like a part of you where you're just sitting there, the credits are rolling, and you're like, wait a second. And they tackle a lot of like, you know, people versus people, people versus zombies kind of thing.
Mhm.
And like the connections that you form with people, cherish them because they're important.
Right.
Because you never know when the world's gonna end.
Right.
So, I mean, that's something I took out of the game, definitely emotionally wise.
Now, Abby, you already just mentioned that you played the game about a year after release. A question came up in chat from Short and Sweet. Was this a game that you knew you wanted to play as soon as it released, or was it something that you found out later on after it had been out for a while? Obviously, you didn't play it at release, but
Right.
you can kind of...
So I heard about this game right away, and I immediately wanted to play it, but I had to convince my parents because it was mature. So I had to convince my parents to let me get it.
How old were you?
Because,
at the time?
I mean, 15 when I finally played it. I'm a year above the actual year. So in 2013 when the game came out, I was 14.
Okay.
So when I actually played it, I was 15. I had to convince my parents to let me play it because it was an M game. So I had to have my dad come with me to GameStop to get it and all of this stuff. But the minute I saw the trailer and like everything going on with it, I knew that I wanted to play it. And it was actually the first game that I ever played on my own outside of Sims.
That's quite a leap there from the Sims
I know. Big leap.
to The Last of Us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you basically were playing this when you were a junior or a freshman in high school. So
Mhm.
what kind of an impact do you think playing this game from that period had on your childhood?
Well, so the big thing that I was thinking about if I was asked this question or something along these lines, this game set me on my path of enjoying story games. So this game set me up for one of my favorite games, Heavy Rain. It set me up to play, you know, any of those like really, really story-based games like The Quantic Dream, The Walking Dead, anything by Telltale. This game is what put me on that path because this game is so story heavy.
And that's probably something then that has really influenced the games that you have selected over the last
Absolutely.
several years. You're gearing up more towards story-based games because you want to be involved in the story.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
See, and I find that fascinating from a psychological level that all of a sudden you were exposed to a game like this in your late teens, and it impacted you in that specific manner. That now,
Right. I mean,
for the rest of
and that-
at least up until now, your gaming career is trying to find more story-based games.
Oh, absolutely. And like honestly, I think it's kind of funny because me and Ben butt heads now because of games like Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. We're playing through that right now. For the longest time, Ben could not stand that game. I still think he doesn't like it, but he can't stand it. I played it and I fell in love with it immediately. The controls that I didn't like didn't matter at all to me. I was like, you know what? I'll push through them, I'll tough it out, and I'll deal with it because the story is phenomenal. Ben, on the other hand, is the complete opposite, where he's like, the story doesn't make up for bad controls. And so it's a dynamic that we get to bring into our channel, which I think is really, really cool to have that differentiation.
Well, and
I agree to that.
the GamingAvengerz channel itself is an amalgamation of you three, and your types of interest in games, your different styles of gameplay. Like Isaac is often referred to as the God Gamer. He's the best.
Yes.
He's the best gamer on the face of the planet, and
He is wiping the floor with Elden Ring, Scotty. Wiping the floor. He's got 80 hours on that already.
Wow. That just came out last week, right?
Yeah.
Have there even been 80 hours since it came out? But...
Oh, Isaac, you're on mute. You're still on mute. You hit it twice.
He's still on mute. What the fuck are you doing?
There you go.
There you go.
No idea how that happened. I had a really slow week at work, so I had that pulled.
So it made it possible.
So actual playtime might not be 80 hours.
Right. And when you were at work, you're just like, fuck you, I'm playing Elden Ring.
Well, I mean,
Yep.
I probably had like 8 hours total work to do over the week. So.
Oh, okay. Well, next week it's not going to be so easy. All right. Do we have any more questions at the moment, Cage?
Yeah, this is actually like I had this one for you, Abby. So, when I first played The Last of Us, I played with Short and Sweet sitting next to me, and I was forced to turn the game off after the opening sequence with Joel and his daughter. So, my question for you would be, how did the prologue scene with Joel and his daughter hit you in the proverbial feels?
So, I mean, I'll also take this from the perspective that I was a 15-year-old girl. So I was sitting there watching this, and I was shocked at first, and I literally felt like I went through like the 5 stages of grief in like 30 seconds. I was like, no, she's not dead. Oh my gosh, she's dead. No, why would they do that? And it's just like all of the stages of grief right then and there immediately. By the end of it, I was just bawling though. Like that small little transitional period that you give you between that prologue cutscene and the start of like where you actually start getting to play, like the 10 years or whatever years later. I think it's 20 years. That gap, I just spent in tears. I was just crying. I was like, no, why would they do that?
Well, and go ahead, Cage.
I was gonna say, to me, that's the mark of a good setup for a story. That they can bring that out in the first few minutes of the game. Like I said, I mean, to this day, we haven't gone back to that game because she can't get past that scene. Same kind of thing happened if you ever saw the Pixar movie Up. I had to turn that movie off, and to this day, I've never seen the movie Up because someone will not watch it with me because we can't get past the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh, short and sweet. You're cruel. You're stopping your husband from watching one of the most fantastical Disney movies there is. But no, I get it. I do. And Cage, you're just gonna have to watch it, when she's not there or something.
Yeah, I figured as much.
It's gonna be like your guilty porn. Oh, I gotta watch Up.
Exactly. Joel, our Joel in the chat, and we all are thankful for the fact that you don't have a daughter, Joel. Joel has a question about how does it stack up against games like Heavy Rain or like Uncharted?
That's a really good question. So, I think that you could put this one in the same, not the same level because they're very different, but this like the same almost category, I guess, as Uncharted. Third person shooter, you're still, third person, you've got the connection, you've got the main character, and ammo is limited, things like that. I wouldn't put it under the same classification as Heavy Rain unless you're solely talking about story. Because Heavy Rain is like almost entirely QTE and dialogue based. It's a playable movie. There's hardly ever any kind of thing where like shooting or doing that kind of thing. And if it's if you're shooting someone, it's a QTE. Very rarely do you actually have to aim. But I mean, like, based solely off of story alone, I would put Last of Us up there with Heavy Rain, because Heavy Rain was the other one that I was debating doing for this. I debated between Heavy Rain and The Last of Us. Thank God I ended up going with The Last of Us, because you can't record audio from a PlayStation, apparently. From a PlayStation 3. So I'm very grateful I ended up going with that, because I don't have the Heavy Rain one, the Heavy Rain remaster.
I have heard so many people that have issues, even including Joel, with getting capture, getting audio, all sorts of things from the PS2 and the PS3.
There's a setting on there that you cannot disable.
Right.
That doesn't allow for it.
But not only that,
awful.
Some of the workarounds don't always work. Like the things that you can,
right?
But then my understanding is that like when you get to PS4 and PS5, there's no problems whatsoever.
Right.
And it's like, you know what I think I'd rather do is maybe try to run, just working from my previous tech experience, maybe run it through a TV or a VCR or something like that, just so you can have that something in the middle where it's still going to receive the sound, but then it's got a separate connection going out to something else, just to be, but who wants to do that just to be able to capture from a PS2,
Right.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
All right, so Abby, what you were talking about? What the other game he mentioned? Let me see.
Heavy Rain and Uncharted.
Yeah, so Heavy Rain. Did you also play those around the same time when you were mid-teens?
Right after I beat this game, I also convinced my parents to take me to GameStop to get Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls, I believe, was already out by that point too.
So
which is both are from Quantic Dream.
So basically, your entire young adulthood was convincing your parents to buy you games that otherwise they wouldn't buy you.
Well, convincing them to let me buy them.
Oh, well, there you go.
I thankfully had my own money. I wasn't making them buy them for me. But yeah, it was. Will you take me to GameStop so that I can buy this game? Because I'm not old enough to buy it on my own yet.
And was there like a lot of pushback on that? They were concerned for your mental well-being?
There were a couple of them. For Beyond Two Souls, they were very worried about it, but my parents are also very like... I wasn't allowed to watch SpongeBob.
Whoa. Kind
of protective and concerned. So Beyond Two Souls is a game where you play as a girl. I forgot. Ellen Page changed to a he. I don't remember his actual name now. Elliot Page.
Yeah.
Back when he was still Ellen Page, they were still Ellen Page. They play as this. They're this character that has essentially an entity connected to them, named Aiden. And so it was very like ghosts and haunted things and other realms, and my parents were very not a fan of that.
Yeah.
But in the end, they let me get it, because I think they were kind of like, well, we either let her get this or she's gonna find something else.
Is your family religious?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, my mom is. My dad was kind of the push that was like, just let her get this game. It's not like it's gonna do horrible things to her brain. It's just a video game.
Harm.
Right. It's not. He was like, it's not going to do that. It's a video game. She'll be fine.
But it was that religious factor coming in that was making at least your mom go, I don't know about this, and
yeah.
And you mentioned SpongeBob, but the same with me. Me and my brother, we grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses, and my parents are still witnesses, but it was extremely strict. We weren't allowed to watch anything that had anything whatsoever to do with violence, witchcraft, demonology, any of that stuff, right? And like, I remember we were allowed to watch only the opening couch scene to The Simpsons. Nothing else. And the reason why was because of the violence that was in the Itchy and Scratchy cartoons.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. But you mentioned SpongeBob. What specifically, if you don't mind me asking, did your parents have against SpongeBob?
My dad had no qualms with SpongeBob. My mom said that Squidward was too mean. That is the only justification I've ever gotten from her. I was like, why wasn't I allowed to watch this? She goes, well, Squidward's just really mean to SpongeBob and Patrick. And I was like, that's it? That's why I was deprived of that? I got made fun of in high school for that?
Wow.
I was like, my classmates were meaner to me than Squidward was to SpongeBob, I guarantee it.
And she'd probably be like, yeah, they learned it from Squidward, yeah. That's why you're not allowed to watch it.
She was like, they learned it from Squidward. I wasn't allowed to watch Power Rangers. Too violent.
Same, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, also had to deal with everything you've mentioned, Abby. I've also had to deal with it. So
now,
Yeah.
of course, you know, my parents loosened up a little bit over time, and
yeah,
Right.
same.
you know, as I got older, it was less of a thing. But you know, like I remember my mom saying, "Sorry, you can't go to a Friday night football game because I've been to a Friday night football game and people are having sex under the stands." I'm like, no, Mom, that's not
No.
happening.
That's not happening, guarantee
And
it.
especially not to me. Nobody wants to have sex with me, Mom. Thank you. You know. So yeah, I totally understand that whole thing, but
Yeah.
it seems like, you know, at least you were persuasive enough with your dad's help to get past that.
Or I just, like, was sneaky. I did that a lot. I was really sneaky. Like, games, not so much, because those you can't really get. But I think for 2 years, I was watching the TV show Supernatural. And every time my mom would walk in, because I'd watch it on my tablet or my Kindle, because you could download Netflix on your Kindle, and I was just watching it on my Kindle. And my mom would walk in and be like, "What you doing? What you watching?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm watching Psych." For 2 years, she believed it. She never asked.
Well, and that sounds
So
like
I was sneaky. She doesn't know about it now. So if she sees this for some reason, she's not gonna be like, "Wait a minute." She knows now.
That sounds like one of our previous guests, Steph Babies, who I think it was Halo 3, the game she had presented. She was talking about how like her internet time was limited by her father by a parental lock on the console, and she guessed right on the first try what his password was. So for years she would just play for hours on end into the night, and he never knew about it simply because she had guessed the password right.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously, you know, you then were able not only to convince you, because you know, you're talking about, yeah, you can't just go and buy the games. It was probably easier for you to get alcohol or cigarettes at the time if you wanted them.
Dude, my mom would straight up be like, she'd go out and be like, "Here, there's beer in the fridge if you want some. Just don't get wasted. Don't go anywhere." I'm like, "You'll let me do this, but you won't let me play a video game?"
No, but
I assure you, alcohol was way easier for me to get.
But like, think about it. You can stand outside of a liquor store when you're 16 and go,
Yeah.
hey, dude, going in, you know, would you buy me some? And you know, you might get lucky.
Right.
You can't do that at a video game store because that's weird
She
as fuck.
also
Like,
conveniently forgot that I had a friend that turned 18 when I was 16.
Well, there you go.
So like, I'd just be like, "Hey, here's $60. So you go pick this game up for me." And he'd be like, "Yep,
There you go.
I got you."
He got your bypass, and she was never the wiser.
Yeah.
Mom,
There's
if
a
you're
lot of
watching this, Abby's
There's a
mom.
lot of sneaky things that you could do as a kid, but like, it wasn't ever because I was just trying to be a bad kid. It was because I was trying to play the kinds of games that I wanted to play. You know? That's my justification for it.
Right. So Abby's mom on behalf of Abby, I want to apologize for just how much shit she caused without your knowledge in the years between 15 and 18, and I am really sorry. You know, she's a fine young woman, and she turned out just fine despite your worries, your typical motherly worries. But I just want to apologize on her behalf. So. Yeah, as Joel is commenting in our chat, that's what I was thinking of. Like, you know, you can stand outside of a liquor store and go, hey, dude, you know, rando walking in, you know, I'll give you some extra cash if you go in and buy me some alcohol. Clearly, I'm underage, and they're like, I give or don't give a shit. You know, are you gonna stand outside a GameStop and talk to the rando walking in like, hey, dude, I'm under 18. I can't buy The Last of Us. Can you go in there and buy it for me, please?
I feel like 90% of gamers would just be like, yeah, sure, I guess.
Funny enough, that happens. I promise you, that happens.
Wow.
Yeah. Like,
See, now it's
you would
harder to
think
do
it
that, though.
wouldn't, but
Like, now they don't really have to do that, though. All they have to do is, like, enter fake information and buy it digitally.
Yeah.
or like GameStop, for instance, does they partner with DoorDash. They do same day delivery of a game. You can buy a game on the website, have it delivered to you same day. You just, oh, I need to be over 18 to buy this? Okay, yeah, sure, my birth date is blah, 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 1965. I'm over 18.
Right.
What do you know, computer?
Yeah. I was smart when I lied about my age, though. I put, like, I made it so that I was just barely 18. So, like, when I was, like, I was 17, or when I was 16, I did, like, you know, 1998, because I'm 99. And so then I would just... I'd make it so that I was just barely 18. I mathed it out 90% of the time. I was like, okay, it's this day. What this year?
So that takes me back to what I said at the beginning, that Abby's in Switzerland incognito because you are one
Yes.
sneaky bastard.
That's me.
Oh boy.
I think you married a spy.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
Any more questions we got to get to at the moment, Cage?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope,
so
we are clear.
if you were in the live chat right now, if you have any questions for Abby, we're going to be moving on here in just a few minutes. Go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll ask them real quick. Abby, do you have any other like specific memories associated with this game? Like, for instance, you come across this particular scene in the game when you're playing it again now, and it instantly takes you back to this moment in your history?
I gotta say, like, just like, I feel like I constantly come back to this game all the time. I was playing Breath of the Wild the other day, and I was looking out at all the scenery. It was super pretty, and I looked and I went, this reminds me of The Last of Us, because The Last of Us was like the first connection I had to like just really, really gorgeous scenery and like gorgeous backgrounds and really just, it looks amazing. And it was like any game now that I see that where I look out at the scenery and I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so beautiful. I'm always like kind of like The Last of Us, because that was my first experience with that as somebody who'd only ever played Sims before that. That like it was incredible. It opened up a whole new door of like, games can look like this. So like anytime a game has really, really pretty scenery, I always kind of come back to it because it's almost like a root for me.
So it's actually other games that are reminding you of this game.
Yes.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, so that's The Last of Us. When did it come out again?
2013.
2013. I have the memory of a goldfish, so I might ask you yet again in the last 2 minutes of the gameplay here while we're wrapping this up. So 2013, and you were 15 at the time, and you said immediately after that, then you got into some of the other games that are very similar.
Yes.
Is there any other style besides this format of intense you're in the storyline that they have created. Aside from those games, are there any other types of games that hold your attention and you really like to, especially like if you want to switch it up, change it to something different, and this is what you go to?
Lately I've gotten really, and this is all thanks to Ben. I think Ben is above me in the
Yes.
podcast.
Yeah.
Lately, thanks to Ben and my husband Isaac, they have really gotten me into Legend of Zelda. So I'm super into those games right now.
Okay, and are you
Which-
playing through the whole series?
I have played through. We've done Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time. In that order, we did Majora's Mask first. Ben was not happy with me.
Nor should he be. That's sacrilege in itself.
Yeah, no, man, you gotta go in
I
order.
wanted to play Majora's Mask because of Ben Drowned. I grew up on that creepypasta, and I was like, I want to play the game that's based in. So we played Majora's Mask first, and it was also Halloween when we started it. Then we played Ocarina of Time. We played Twilight Princess, which I loved. We played Breath of the Wild. We're playing through Skyward Sword right now.
Which Ben hates.
Ben hates Skyward Sword. Don't get him started on Skyward Sword. He'll rant for 3 hours and we'll lose 3 followers in the process.
Oh boy, no, that's fine.
I don't think I've played any other ones though, or at least not off the top of my brain. I'm probably forgetting one.
I think that's all we've done.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's how we've played. But I'm also on my third playthrough of Breath of the Wild. I just keep restarting it.
And the best one out of all of those is Skyward Sword because it's the best game on the planet, right?
Yes,
right, Ben?
that. Yeah,
It's
Ben.
my favorite game of all time.
You got to grit the teeth when you're saying, it's the greatest
Exactly.
game of all time. Oh, God. All right. So that is The Last of Us, presented by Abby, who is one member of the Gaming Avengers. We're going to take a short commercial break and then come right back for the second game, and that is Isaac's presentation of Donkey Kong 64. Stay tuned. All right. Welcome back. I know that was an absolutely unnerving commercial break, but thank you for sticking with us. Donkey Kong 64, it looks almost exactly like The Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Hold on, I
Spot
gotta
on.
turn that down here. Yeah, hold on, gotta fix this one thing. There we go. Okay. Alright, so Donkey Kong 64, as I had mentioned in a previous episode, it seems like a lot of people, not only in our community, but in Twitch at large, this is, for the most part, the stuff that you kind of grew up with. Starting primarily with the N64 platform, the PS1, the Xbox One, or not the Xbox One, the Xbox, and those games that were very popular in the 90s seem to be like a huge influence on such a big portion of the people that are on Twitch and other places as well, but primarily because of the age range, it seems, which most of the people on Twitch are right around 30 years of age. I'm one of the oldest people that I know in our community. I'm going to be turning 40 in May, and I feel every bit of that 40 in my knees, but even I don't think I actually played Donkey Kong 64 at any point. I do know that I played like a few of the Donkey Kong games on SNES. But like we were playing, our grandmother bought us an N64, and then a few games, and then of course renting games at the video store. So we had like Mario 64, we had Wave Race. Our friend had Pod Racing that he brought over. So I'm familiar with the 64 games. So, but Isaac. Donkey Kong 64, obviously, if it's playing this big a part of your childhood, you're not only in that age range, but you also are very familiar with the kind of styling between the N64 style of gameplay and the other games that are related because of that range and that time period when this sort of thing was popular.
Mhm.
So, what is it that why does this appeal to you, and what's the big draw even now and today?
Yeah, so the Nintendo 64 was actually like my first console. And my brother and I would play together all the time on it. So we had things like Ocarina of Time, Donkey Kong 64, obviously, and all sorts of stuff on the 64, but no other real video games when I was starting out playing. I mean, we obviously had like things on the computer, like the pinball game and stuff, but for the most part, the Nintendo 64 was gaming in my childhood. So all the games have a very nostalgia feel to them.
And are you playing on like your original console when you do this, or what's the platform now for you?
Yeah, I have it on the Wii U.
Okay.
It's not the console I prefer it to be on, but a while back we ended up selling our Nintendo 64. Not to my preference, but
Yeah.
yeah. So got rid of all the games. Unfortunately, we had like the golden Ocarina of Time one, so I was
Ooh.
kind of upset about it. But yeah, so mostly modern consoles I play the Nintendo 64 games on.
Okay.
We just got the access to the Nintendo 64 stuff on the Switch, so
Okay.
I'll
And
probably be moving over to that.
that leads me to ask how, because like I know I tried playing on the Mario All Stars cartridge on SNES, the original Mario 3, and even the other
Mhm.
ones, and it did not work for me trying to play that on SNES controller. So how are you dealing with that aspect of it, having played on the N64 controller, uh, with that being your first console, and now having to do it on more modern consoles with those controllers?
It's definitely a learning curve every time I come back to it. um, Very different from how the controls originally worked. Like throughout my playthrough, like just now, or just a little bit ago, I kept walking back and forth through the doors because I would forget the controls and stuff. But it takes a little bit to get used to, but once I do, I get into a flow and can play fairly well.
Okay. And no, you didn't black out, Cage. I'm just a fucking dumbass. So, we're gonna do it live. Cage, why don't you tell us a little bit about DK64 and the history around it?
Okay, Scotty. And we'll forgive you for it because this is not our typical format. Usually, you only have to
Right.
kick it over to me one time. So yeah, Donkey Kong 64 came out on November 2nd or November 22nd, 1999. It shares birthdays with tennis legend Billie Jean King, actress Jamie Lee Curtis, actor Mads Mikkelsen, and funnily enough, two Avengers. Since we have the Gaming Avengers, actor Mark Ruffalo and actress Scarlett Johansson are also born on November 22nd. So I feel like that's appropriate for one of your guys' game choices. The game came out. It was generally regarded in very high fashion, getting a 90 out of 100 in Metacritic. Some highlights of that being 4.8 out of 5 from GamePro, 9 out of 10 from GameSpot, 9 out of 10 from IGN, and 8.6 out of 10 from Nintendo Power. Always find it funny when Nintendo gives their like big games a later rating than other places, but yeah, whatever. While the game did have some critical complaints about certain things, one of which has already been brought up in a chat question, the game did end up going on to be a big hit during the holiday season in 1999, and has, as of 2004, had sold 2.4 million copies worldwide. And it also had one of the awesomest looking custom consoles for it. There was a like a see-through lime green N64 that was available with Donkey Kong 64, and it was one of the 2 games that actually required the N64 expansion pack. So there's a little bit about Donkey Kong 64 for you.
All right. So Isaac, why don't you take us now through like some of the storyline and the gameplay aspects of it?
Yeah, so I just recently found out it comes at the end of like the Donkey Kong Country games. So it comes after, I think, Donkey Kong Land 3. But basically, King K. Rool comes back in a giant mechanical island with a big gun to destroy Kong Island. And the only reason he fails to do that at the beginning of the game is because his minions are completely inept and crash the island and disable the big gun. So to buy himself time, King K. Rool kidnaps Diddy and the other Kongs and steals all of Donkey Kong's golden bananas.
I hate when people
So
steal my
then-
golden bananas.
Right.
The worst. But Guax, the little bird we saw at the beginning, comes in and tells Donkey Kong that his bananas were stolen. All the Kongs were imprisoned by King K. Rool, and then he goes and talks to. Never remember the doctor's name. But he gets the power up so he can go and help rescue him. And then he goes out and meets terrible with names, but King K. Rool's, I think, his son, the big alligator crocodile thing in the cage, and he gets him to help open up other areas of the island to go, and then like in Jungle Japes he rescues Diddy Kong, and he goes and rescues all the Kongs, and they gather up the bananas and other stuff to be able to disable the gun permanently and beat King K. Rool.
Now, so this was your first console. Was it actually your first game on the first console?
I don't think so. I think my first game on the console was either Ocarina of Time or 007.
Well,
What is that, GoldenEye?
yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard 007 GoldenEye is notoriously difficult
Mm-hmm.
on the 64. So, but you essentially latched onto this one.
Yeah.
And how many tens of thousands of hours of gameplay do you have into this one?
Not as many as Elden Ring.
Okay.
It's a shorter game, I think. But I probably have somewhere north of 40 hours.
Okay. So what specifically appeals to you about this particular N64 game?
Yeah, so I like the level building. I like that it has a central island that you come back to, and you have to open up different parts of it to progress in the story. I also love collection games. So the fact that I had the golden bananas you had to collect, there's 100 bananas for each Kong in each level, and then you can also upgrade your characters and stuff. All that kind of all in one package is what I really like about Donkey Kong 64, and it was the only one for the 64 that I had that was like that.
And that seems to remind me of Tuba Swan playing Banjo-Kazooie, because the collection elements were also very heavy on that, and not only like one or two items, there was like 6 or 8 different items that you were collecting over the course of the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And have you 100% completed this?
I think I did it once.
Okay.
Not recently, but it is generally my goal for games like this to collect everything. So
Okay. And what about like?
You mentioned.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Cage.
I was gonna say you mentioned that you have 100% of this. A question came up in chat that was kind of right along this line. Um, does the collectathon aspect of the game take away from it at all for you? Because that was the thing I mentioned earlier that was kind of a critically generalized complaint, is that there was too much to collect in this game. So, yeah, do you feel like it took away from the game for you?
I honestly don't. There are games that I've played with collectathons where it's like grueling to go out and collect all the collectibles you need to progress in the story, but I feel like Donkey Kong didn't have that as much as like more modern collectathon games. So I don't think it detracted from the game at all.
Sorry, I'm reading chat.
Yes, Ben. That's Ben over there. He's.
Oh my!
He's here.
Unless you asked me to, I couldn't say no.
Oh boy. Anyway, if you're watching in our live chat, I want to apologize first of all because apparently my internet is really shitty today. I've been dropping frames unbelievably, so worse than probably any stream in the last 6 months. So I apologize for that. I will, suggest maybe check out the VOD. If you're having
fault.
problems with it, yeah, it's all Ben's
Oh my
fault.
gosh!
Because
It usually is.
not only is it his birthday and he loves Bowser, but he's also, not knowing, where Kaji Blaze is and having to hold up his hand to wave at Kaji Blaze, and we just have a lot of fun here with all this bullshit. But
Just know that having all three of us on here at the same time is the reason this is happening. Because when all three of us are together, it's chaos.
It's
Like the
chaos
last three
all the
brain
time.
cells in a brain
Yeah,
fighting.
I mean,
It's because it's
it
an
might.
Avengers level threat.
Yeah, I mean, it might be, but I'm not basically running anything on my computer that's any worse than anything we've done previously, and it's just every once in a while it's just taking a shit, and then we really have to work on our internet connection, and hopefully that's going to be sorted out. But in any case, the recording is perfectly fine. So if you are having trouble watching the stream, I suggest just going back and seeing the VOD afterwards, and we'll at least appear properly there. Except for Ben, who just I don't know, he's got he's got problems in that corner, man. Anyway,
Yeah.
He's got 99 problems, but Bowser ain't one.
Oh my gosh!
oh.
Sorry, we're taking away from Isaac's time. I'm so sorry.
Isaac's just down there like,
Hey, Isaac,
legit.
welcome to being married. That's what it's going to be for the rest of your life.
Oh well, we're gonna have plenty of time in Ben's segment to make all of the Bowser and birthday jokes.
Yeah,
that we
I'll
could
save
possibly
the rest of
cram
my
in there.
Bowser
So
jokes
yeah,
for
stay
Ben's
stay
section.
tuned. That's coming up soon. Yeah. Anyway, back to Donkey Kong 64, not to be confused with any of the previous ones. So, have you since gone back and played any of the Donkey Kong games that came before it, and not necessarily like the retro games, the ones that were for SNES or arcade, but more primarily, I'm thinking of like the SNES ones, the Donkey Kong Countries, and those ones that also have a lot of these more specific story elements created by Nintendo coming into it. Did you go back and play them, and how do you think that compares with the experience of playing this on the 64?
I have gone back and played a couple of them. I haven't really enjoyed them as much as I did 64, but that's mostly because I like 3D platformers compared to like the Donkey Kong style 2D platformer.
And then the same way going forward, like, I don't know if there's anything that came after this, like, story-wise. Because didn't they start shifting then more into, like, only using them for, like, Smash Brothers and
I
stuff
think
like
so,
that?
yeah.
There
I
wasn't a...
can't.
I was gonna say they did revive it. While Donkey Kong 64 was kind of pretty critically acclaimed, they started doing some weird stuff like after the 64, like with like Donkey Konga, if you remember that game on the GameCube, Jungle Beat and Barrel Blast, like on the GameCube and Wii. But they did realize that people wanted that kind of like return to the Donkey Kong Country, we'll call it, style of game, and they did bring out Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, and then Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, and those are a return to the side-scrolling style like the SNES games, and were very well received.
Okay, so this...
Can I
Go ahead, Ben.
the reason why they haven't done like this style of game yet is because Microsoft bought Rare, which is Rare was the one developing these games. So yeah, that's
So it seems like this one that was on the 64 platform is probably like the pinnacle of storyline surrounding the Donkey Kong universe, where they basically explored and came up with a broader storyline that was typical of some of these 3D open world and even RPG games that they were on the 64, right? Okay. Do we have any questions in chat, Cage?
Yes, I got two questions that have been brought up in chat, and if anyone else has any more, please feel free to drop them in there. So we'll go with we'll save the best one for last, I think. So Isaac, your wonderful wife Abby actually typed a question in chat. You mentioned that you played this game with your brother. Were there a lot of moments where you fought over the controller, or was it easy to pass back and forth without arguments? And I'm assuming she probably knows the answer, but it might be a funny answer, so I don't know.
I don't think there were arguments per se, but there were definitely times when I was playing on the controller that wasn't plugged in.
oh yeah.
Oh, he pulled that on you?
Oh boy.
Come on, Omen of the Overlander, get with the program.
But no, for the most part, we shared control of it fairly well. I think we did a thing where whenever we needed to switch Kongs, we would switch who's controlling them. So, like, Caleb would have Donkey Kong and Chunky Kong, and I would have Tiny and Diddy, and things like that.
Gotcha.
Now, did this have the ability to have 4 players?
I don't think so. I think this
It was
was
just
a
2-player.
strictly single player
Oh, single. Okay.
game.
Okay.
hmm
Because I know N64 was the first to have that capability to have up to 4 players at the same time, which came into play obviously with like pod racing and Mario Kart and that, but I didn't know if any of these had some of those multiplayer aspects. No.
Yeah, and I think the single playerness of it was another one of like the kind of critical issues that they had with all the Donkey Kong Country games on the previous console being 2 players. So.
Oh no, it's the armadillo of death.
The first time I was filming, it killed me like 3 times.
You, the gamer god?
Yeah.
Like I said, it takes a little bit to get used to the control.
Especially if you haven't played for a while, too. I mean, yeah, you're talking about that transition going from the N64 controller that you were used to as a kid and now playing it on a modern console. with the different positions and the buttons and all that. But yeah, if you haven't played it in forever, coming back to it and you're like, oh yeah, that thing was there, and now I'm dead because I forgot it was there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so our one and only Joel, because he always asks the hard-hitting questions in the chat. So Isaac, Joel wants to know if you had to recite the entire DK rap or go to jail, could you do it?
I would probably be in jail at this point. I used to be able to. But I can't any longer.
Can you at least give us a sampling?
Like, never mind.
I don't think
Ben
so.
can do it. I bet Ben can do it.
It is definitely one of my favorite games, but it has also been like over a year since I
Okay.
played through it a lot. So.
Isaac, you have to nominate Ben to do it in your steed,
Ben, do you got this?
so you don't go to jail.
Why am I blanking on the first word?
I know
alright.
that. He's finally back.
Right. Kick some tail. Put your hands together if you wanna clap as we take you through this monkey rap. Huh. Donkey Kong.
Now,
He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. That's as far as I got. Oops.
now you got to do a dab, and then.
The dab. No, I'm not doing the dab. No.
Why not?
Oh, that's fine. Well,
As you guys can tell, I'm the negative peer pressure on our channel.
that's fine. We'll get to that in the next segment. When Ben is presenting his game, there's going to be plenty of dab moments in that, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, so Isaac, walk me through like a little bit more of your childhood when you were playing this game. You know, the kind of impact it had on you. Some specific memories around this game that you have.
Yeah, so I was probably 6 or 7 when I started playing. So probably a couple years after it actually came out. But so where we're at right now, used to be our garage when we were growing up, and that's where we had our Nintendo 64 set up. We had it in the attic of the garage. So whenever I play this game, it always reminds me of me and my brother sitting up here on boxes and folding chairs, set up with our little itty bitty TV playing Donkey Kong 64 and other Nintendo 64 games. So it's always been. It always brings back the feelings I had when I was that age, and it was really what helped me and my brother connect and grow our relationship quite a bit.
So you're saying where you actually live now is like that space, you know, renovated or?
Yeah.
So like, you know, this has always been one of my favorite questions to ask over these podcasts is, you know, do you have any like specific memories of something that were triggered by like a moment in the game or vice versa? When you walk into the room, are you reminded of this moment back when you were playing this however many years ago?
Yeah. Not specifically with Donkey Kong, but I always remember Caleb he was playing Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and he was riding through Hyrule on Epona, and that's always what comes up when I walk into the room, and yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I love hearing things like that, you know, these good memories that are associated with something that almost seems random. You're walking into a room and all of a sudden that flashes through your mind because it was such a big impact on you at that time, however many years ago.
Yeah.
So what else was like what caused you to like pull this game with you throughout your gaming history, and to the point where even now maybe you'll go back and revisit it.
I really like the graphics and style of this game, and once again, I love collectathon games. So,
have you found other games in that style that are similar to this that you also enjoy?
Yeah, I've recently found they're similar aged games, but I recently played through Banjo-Kazooie and what's the other one? There's another one that's like the exact same game as Banjo-Kazooie, but different characters.
That was from the same era or newer?
Similar, I think. It's got the same or slightly better graphics.
Okay. Because I was gonna say they made the Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah,
like
that's
a spiritual sequel to
Mhm.
or successor to Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. Yes, that was the other one I was thinking of.
Okay.
All right. If there's any other questions for Isaac concerning the game he's presenting, Donkey Kong 64, if you would put them in your chat, in the chat here immediately, and we can go ahead and ask them of our guest, who is Isaac of TheGamingAvengerz. He's 1/3 of the total, even though he's gamer god, and probably he just plays all the TheGamingAvengerz games anyway, remotely with his mind, if he's not actually in front of the screen
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
controller.
Anytime we have won, it's because Isaac has been there.
Pretty much.
Okay, but you guys handled killing Majora together. I wasn't there for that.
Okay, you know what? You're right, but you were there in spirit, which is why we won.
What's that last question from Joel?
Touching back on his question about collectathoning that I asked, he's asking, do you hate it, love it, tolerate it? I mean, you kind of said that you know collectathoning games are definitely your bag. So I don't know. I mean, touch on your idea of what makes a good collectathoning game versus just tedious work.
Yeah. So I like a collectathon that allows you to go out and collect 100% of the items. But to proceed with the game, you only need to collect like 50 to 60% of them. So it keeps the flow of the game, but also has that collectible side to it. So you can come back to the game to levels after you've beaten the game or just before you beat the game and collect everything if you want to, or you can just go ahead and finish the game. So like this one having 100 bananas per character, but you only need 50 or 60 of them that you find throughout the course of it is, in my opinion, a good way to do collectathons, as opposed to Breath of the Wild having 999 Koroks.
It's just excessive.
there is an upper limit to how many collectibles you should have, and 999 definitely exceeds that.
It's a little bit of excessive there.
Mm-hmm.
Could be worse. Could be 9,999, you know.
Uh-huh. You'd be picking those up with every step, though.
Yeah. All right. So that's Donkey Kong 64. We're going to take our last commercial break. Stay tuned. Ben from TheGamingAvengerz will be right back with his game, MegaMan X. 1 second. All right, so we're back for the final playthrough of the TheGamingAvengerz, and that is the masterful leader. At least
I'm not the leader. I'm not the leader.
Ben's the leader.
Ben's the leader.
Ben is so the leader of the Gaming Avengers, yes.
Fine.
Mega- I mean,
It's a title we've handed to you, Ben. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
mean, I'll take the burden.
It is your birthday, so just shut up. Mega Man X is the game Ben selected. So Ben, why don't you start by telling us about the storyline and where does this fall in like the Mega Man history?
So we don't actually know. Technically, the fans have determined that there might be 2 timelines, but Mega Man hasn't said anything about the timelines. But all right, context of this game: you get thrown into it right away at the very beginning. You're basically been asleep for like 100 years. Jesus, I was hearing my own voice. So like, all you know is robots are bad, and you're a robot that has to fight off all the other bad robots. So you do so by moving on the screen right, and you just keep walking right. You shoot lemons at people too, if you feel like it. That's always been a favorite joke of mine.
Fruity Fresh.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time. Even just this tutorial level is just amazing, because like modern day games have like all these 80 bazillion thousand words, or you know, they pop up with a screen on the game that says, hey, you have to do this, please. And this game doesn't do that. It just throws you in and you just go. It doesn't stop you. It doesn't. It just lets you be you in the game.
And no big, storylines to set the scene or anything. You're just all of a sudden thrown in as Mega Man, and you probably wouldn't even necessarily know what the context is unless you played the previous games.
Yeah, which I'll preface this: I never played original Mega Man. I never played any of them.
So you played this first.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Cage. Why don't you tell us more about this game and when it came out?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mega Man X debuted on Friday, December 17th, 1993 in Japan. Celebrating birthdays that day were Pope Francis, actress Sarah Paulson, TV chef Duff Goldman, actress Mila Jovovich, and boxer Manny Pacquiao.
And Ben.
And Ben.
Goodness. Not like this.
So you share your birthday with quite a few famous people, Ben. So there you go.
Like all of them.
It's funny, when this game came out, it actually confused a lot of people because certain games had been using Roman numerals for numbering properties. So there was I remember there was a lot of argument when this game came out. Is it Mega Man 10 or is it Mega Man X? And I mean, it kind of solves itself if you actually pay attention to the storyline in there.
Yeah.
But there was some confusion with it. However, the game came out to some really, really good critic acclaim. IGN giving it a 9 out of 10. Nintendo Life Magazine giving it a 9 out of 10. GamePro 4.75 out of 5. EGM 9 out of 10. And this game has been included on many greatest games of all times lists, including 8th best game in the entire SNES library from ScrewAttack.com. So this game is very well loved to this day, and there are tons of people that still play it.
Are you sure that's not a porn site, ScrewAttack.com?
Yeah, you would think so, but no, it is definitely a video game site. That used to be the main host of the Angry Video Game Nerd, even ScrewAttack.com. So,
Yep.
But yeah, there's a bit about Mega Man X.
All right, so Ben, why don't you tell us more about the storyline and like the gameplay aspects, where you're not only, you said, you're just kind of thrust into the action right off the bat, which I think is kind of typical with a lot of 2D platformers.
Right.
They didn't really spend a lot, like on Doom when he was playing Black Tiger. You know, it did have kind of like an opening sequence where
Right.
it shows like the dragons coming in and gives some background on the storyline. I think a lot of 2D, like, you know, just regular Mario on the NES that I'm more familiar with, you know, you just start World 1-1, boom, you're in the action.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
why don't you take us through some of that, the storyline that you find out as you're going through it, and the gameplay aspects?
As you're going through it, you find Discount Boba Fett, which you don't find out until later. His name is actually Vile. And he just wrecks you at the very beginning of the game. He just wallops you, and you jump around, you shoot him in the face, you do everything you want to. And it doesn't matter because you find out it's a scripted event, which is one of the best things about this game is it just makes you feel so helpless. So, like, I can't do it, I can't beat him. You find out, after you find out it's a scripted event, Zero, red guy, who was on the screen earlier, he shows up and he says, hey, you could be more powerful. Right now you're not powerful enough to face it, but you could be, and that kind of motivates you for the rest of the game.
Okay, now let me just pause you right there because what you're talking about is something that I've witnessed with a couple of different people, and not only this game but other games. Although
Right.
it seems to be indicative of like the Mega Man series that you are faced with an impossible opponent. You cannot beat them.
Right.
You have to be defeated in order for the story to advance.
Right.
So how did that make you feel when you found that out, and how did you kind of deal with that on a psychological level?
That's a very good question. I don't think my 4-year-old mind really knew what was going on. I was like 4 when I started gaming.
Oh, okay.
This is like the first thing I remember.
Well, you were a young'un.
Yeah, I was like I probably like Mario 1, Mario 2, Mario 3 were probably my first games I ever played on the NES.
Mhm.
But as we said, this came out in 93. I was born in 94. So, like, this was one of my very first games, and I think that's probably why I'm so attached to it. But, I remember feeling very, like, defeated, per se.
Mhm.
Because, like, that's how the game is designed to make you feel.
And then as you moved past that part and you realized, oh, I had to be defeated. This guy you're talking about?
Yeah. Oh, no, not this
Oh.
guy. No, it was the guy,
Right at
the
the
purple
beginning.
guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the first boss.
Yeah. Yeah, so the screen select is different from most games. I know original Mega Man had it, but you can actually pick which boss order you want to fight them in.
Yeah, I seen that.
So as I play... Yeah. As I play through this, I do my preferred boss order. So Chell Penguin is actually probably one of the easiest bosses. Because you just dodge and hit. Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to recall that aspect too, because a friend of mine had this, and I remember being over their house, and that aspect of it where you get to choose where you're going next was kind of different than other games I had played at the time.
Right. Yeah, because like Mario is like very linear. Zelda, you can do out of order in the first one, but like it's definitely not recommended.
Mhm.
Isaac can comment on that.
Don't start out with the sixth temple. It's very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, I definitely would not do that.
Yeah, there's that startup screen where you can basically choose which boss you're going to next, and I kind of took that as you're just entering like this boss's domain. You're going through their world to get to them at the end. and
Right.
and it was just a nice choice they gave you. You could do it in whatever order you wanted. Now,
Right.
now, with that varying from other 2D platformers at the time, are you able to find throughout like certain levels other weapons that increase your how powerful you are or your effectiveness that
Yes.
help you, like you want to go get into this boss's world first to go get this thing, and that'll help you in the rest of it.
Yeah, so like in Chill Penguin stage, the previous stage before this one, you get a boost boot, basically. So it makes it so you can slide like I just did there.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 capsules throughout the levels. The 5th one being a super secret one that not a lot of people apparently knew about back in the 90s. But yeah, there's a helmet upgrade, a boots upgrade, a blaster upgrade, and an armor upgrade.
Ben, is that 5th hidden one? Is it a fireball?
No, it is a, if you've ever played Street Fighter, Hadouken.
Or fireball, whatever.
I mean, that's gotta be what a Hadouken is, right? Oh my gosh, the fireball.
Yeah, but what kid is gonna call it a Hadouken?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, Mega Man says it as he shoots it, but, like, I never played Street Fighter, and I honestly didn't know about it until, like, I was probably about 16, 14, 15, somewhere in there.
Well, if you have any questions for Ben of the Gaming Avengers, the unabashed leader of the Gaming Avengers, he would be happy to answer them for you, but just go ahead and put them in our live chat there and we'll be happy to ask. So, what is it about Mega Man X or anything else that you've now played in the series that keeps drawing you back to this particular game, things that are the reasons why it still holds a special place in your heart?
It was probably one of the first games I could actually like play alone. Like usually I've had, most of you know about Handband, but I also have an older brother. So sharing the controller happened a lot. You'll notice that's why I prefer Diddy Kong, that's why I prefer Luigi. Player number 2 options. I was always the younger brother. Mega Man X was like kind of the first one where it could just be me. So, I don't know.
And go ahead, Cage.
Say we got quite a few options or questions coming up in the chat here. So again, our wonderful Joel asking the hard-hitting questions.
Oh,
What is your favorite song from the soundtrack of this game, and why isn't it Storm Eagle?
Oh, it's got to be Storm Eagle. Second choice would actually be the opening level of the game. Third choice, probably the stage select screen.
Nice.
Yeah.
So both Kaji Blaze and Isaac have asked, what is your favorite Mega Man stage? And to add on to that, Isaac also asks, what's your favorite Mega Man boss?
That's a good question. I never thought about that. It's gotta be like Storm Eagle, Storm Eagle, Storm Eagle. Like you see in this, like you're supposed to do him like, technically he's like one of the last ones you're supposed to do, but I like getting that helmet upgrade earlier. And you'll see why in this stage. I try to exploit getting the helmet earlier than most people, but basically he's like one of the few ones where you actually like whatever. I've done the boss order so many different times that I just prefer going after Storm Eagle like second. See right there, I was trying to get the weapon upgrade and I failed miserably. I don't know. Storm Eagle just like he swoops in, he's very menacing, and he's like throws you around. He like blows you off the stage, or tries to anyway.
You know, Storm Eagle in itself is an interesting character because, like, in the lore of Mega Man X, so, like, the bad guy used to be the leader of, like, the good guys, right? And
Sure.
the 8 robots you're fighting are the robots that used to make up his team. And they all went berserk, except for in the actual lore, Storm Eagle did not go berserk like they did. He just followed Sigma because he had the sense of loyalty that this was my commander. Like, I'm just going to continue following him.
Sure.
Now, you said you prior to this you hadn't played any of the previous Mega Man games. I'm assuming you have since gone back and played at least some of those, and how does that compare to this? And is this still your favorite?
Yeah. So I have played 1 and 2. I did go back and play those. I've never beaten, so that's a goal I have. This is still my favorite just because this practice makes perfect. So like every run, like I'm gonna sound like a speedrunner here, but like every time I come back to this game, it's usually out every 3 or 4 months, maybe. I usually play it when I'm like feeling down or I just want to like feel good about myself. Every run becomes like go longer without getting hit. I can do each level slightly faster.
Ben, you know, I know that you don't speedrun this game, but a question I had for you was, so when I was a kid, I never really thought about it like this. Playing this back through as an adult, looking at some of like pro strats for the game would be to remap your dash button to the shoulder button versus keeping it on the A button, which is kind of a weird spot if you're trying to do everything. Do you remap it or do you keep it as the A button?
I keep it as the A button.
Okay.
Because I didn't know you could remap, like even on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I didn't either until just a few years ago, honestly.
How do you... There's a way to remap it?
I'll talk to you about it offline.
Okay, sure, okay.
Well, and on that same note, I mean, Sleight of Game brought up that apparently there's a way that you can continue from where you last died in Super Mario that I never knew about. And it had
I never knew that.
Yeah, it had something to do with pressing select and up or something. I'd have to go back and see because now I'm fucking mad that I didn't know that as a kid. You know, trying to beat Super Mario 1 and never being able... I don't think as a kid I ever did it. I think maybe as an adult I did. So, in any case, are you looking at speedrunning this in the near future? Because you have beaten this now, right?
Yes. Maybe. I don't know. Like, I've thought about it.
What would be holding you back, you think, from making an attempt like that?
I don't know. I think just... I tend to make a lot of mistakes as a gamer, and I just don't trust myself maybe enough. I don't know.
Well, you got to get some of that Isaac Gamer God
Yeah, exactly.
confidence.
Gotta channel my inner Isaac.
And I forgot, Isaac, I wanted to ask you, did you consider speedrunning Donkey Kong 64?
I have not. I'm not huge into speedrunning, so.
Mm. Okay. Well, that's fine. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and like, I agree with Ben on there. Honestly, if there is one game that is in kind of like my repertoire that I could speedrun, honestly, it would probably be this. You know, this game itself, and like when I do my playthrough of Mega Man, I make a lot of stupid mistakes. It takes me a while to get certain things or whatever, and honestly, at the end of the day, I don't want to take away from my enjoyment that I have playing
Right.
this game. So I could completely understand with Ben on this.
All right. Are we caught up on questions?
I have one last one that was in chat so far. Abby actually put in chat, wanted to know, has this game affected the way you look at other games, even if they're in a different style of game?
Yes. I see this as like the pinnacle of gaming, and like a lot of modern games, they over tutorialize, they do weird game design stuff that they shouldn't do, and like, I don't know, this game just nails every aspect: the music, the graphics, the level design, the sense of accomplishment, the sense of just feeling feels in gameplay. Not a lot of games do that anymore. It's usually like a cutscene. It's usually like scripted fights. Scripted fights do this too. Like you beat the person in the game, but then and now all of a sudden you lose in the cutscene. Like that's not enjoyment for me.
Well, and even more
It's
so, like I've seen, I think The Walking Dead is one, the newer Walking Dead that came out, and a couple of these other games where it's like 75-80% cutscenes, and then you're just pressing a button randomly every so often to try Man of Medan, which I mean,
That's 90% of the games that I was touching on. That's 90% of those games, mostly cutscenes.
Right, but what I'm saying is, obviously, that's a different gameplay experience. That's you wanting to go through a storyline, and like in the case of Man of Medan and that whole series, you're actually it's a choose your own adventure on a video game format, but you know, I can understand what you're talking about, where you're saying like maybe gaming, the actual act of playing a video game, it could be more aptly described by this sort of gameplay experience that doesn't have all that extra stuff that kind of blends a video game with a movie. So I get where you're coming from, I think, on that. Like, if you want to try to, you know, maybe fill a nostalgic feel for what gameplay was back in the 80s and the 90s, it was this, because we didn't have all these cutscenes and movie-esque storylines to play through. And that came a little bit later. And yeah, that's gaming now, but it's also very different from where it started.
Yeah. I do want to preface, I do enjoy some of those games that are more story-based. And, like, there is a time for that, but I don't know.
No, it's okay. Especially because, you know, everybody's got their own preferences. I mean, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place, is because there's so many different things, so many different facets of it. It doesn't even just have to be a video game. hopefully going to be having some guests coming up before the end of the season, if not in the beginning of season 2, where we're going to be exploring some tabletop and some dice and card games that were popular back then, including Magic the Gathering and some of these other things that, I mean, it doesn't have to be a video game to hold memories and be a gaming experience that is valuable to you. So,
like,
go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was just gonna say, this to answer the question, I kind of went out a weird tangent, but yeah, it has affected me, and like, I don't know, the real world and video game world, video games can actually control what's happening, and I think that's why I game so much. Is you're in control, whereas life isn't. You're in control.
So
that's completely understandable.
Yeah, I don't know if we've really explored like that so much. So this is maybe the perfect opportunity, the psychological aspect of using a video game as a means of escape or as a means of relaxation. Like you've had a stressful day and you boot up Mega Man X in order to reset yourself.
Yeah.
And get back to feeling more normal.
Yeah.
So, is there other games besides Mega Man? Because you said that you play this fairly often, as opposed to maybe some of our other guests that have not necessarily, revisited it in a while. This game that is their favorite or very important to them from their past, but it seems to me that that's a big aspect of the way you live your gamer lifestyle is revisiting this in order to use it as something as a benefit to you.
Yeah. If I had to say, especially now, Zelda games have a special place in my heart now. More so than before. Like back in 1998, when we got Ocarina of Time, that whole, spoiler alert, plot twist with Sheik, that was something all three of us siblings shared together. Because like we would watch the older one play. So yeah, that was a nice little like, and now we do that with the Gaming Avengers. So
Ben, so Joel wants to know, when you do boot up Mega Man X now, do you complete it? More often than not, when you do boot it up, do you actually sit there and play to completion?
Yes. It's funny you asked that, because that's 100% what I did. Like, I cut off the gameplay and then I continued to beat the game.
Even just in recording that for this, because we only got a half an hour.
Yeah. So I went through and beat the rest of the game. I was like, no, I can't leave it unfinished.
Well, see, now I feel like I'm missing out on the end of that.
Well, you'll see it again at some point in the future, Scotty.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Hashtag X Squad.
X Squad.
Yeah, actually, Cage, why don't you go ahead and talk about that while we're on that subject?
There isn't a ton to talk about it just yet. The whole idea of this X Squad project that we're doing kind of came about from our wonderful own Ingle Doom. Doom loves him some Mega Man, like old school Mega Man, NES, like Mega Man 2 specifically, right? One day he tried playing Mega Man X, and for anyone who's played the original Mega Mans and played Mega Man X, they are very, very different games. Doom wasn't really able to get as far into X as he would like to, so we had started talking about between me and him about the idea that I would kind of quote unquote teach him how to play Mega Man X, for it being different than the original Mega Man's. And that kind of grew into an idea of Ben also joining us, and Mr. Wrong joining us, and me and Ben being the quote unquote kind of like masters of the gameplay and teaching them how to play it while all four of us are simultaneously playing the game on a stream. We don't have an actual date set or anything like that, unfortunately, for that, but it is a project that I'm looking forward to doing here in the future. So.
All right, so you can watch for that on Cage's channel. So let me go through, especially if you're listening on the audio version of the podcast, the way, or rather the place where we do the live recording broadcast of the podcast is on my channel, which is twitch.tv/EBC2021. And we do want to encourage you to stop by at some point. Like I said, we try to record it approximately every 2 weeks, but sometimes that ends up changing, especially based on getting people together, various work schedules, and real life stuff, and all this thing that changes it. So almost always it's on a Saturday or Sunday. And what I would recommend is that if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast and you want to check out the live recording on Twitch, then just go to the website, which is www.ebc2021.com, because that's where I maintain the schedule for my channel. And usually that's pretty accurate, about a week out. And I make sure that that's, going to reflect anything like the upcoming episodes of the podcast we're recording and when that's going to be. We're going to have a gamer coming up very soon, potentially our next episode, but maybe more than that. Where me and Cage are going to have to do it in the morning, because this person is 11 hours ahead of us. They are literally on the other side of the world. And so it will be their late evening when it's our early morning, and we're having to do that kind of a timing in order to have them as a guest on the live podcast. So just check out the schedule. You'll see what's happening. I also have linked on the website there both my co-host Legion Cage and our guest for this evening, the Gaming Avengers. And what I would suggest is just checking them out, because, like, for instance, if you're interested in seeing that which Cage just described, the X Squad, these four people coming together in collaboration to play Mega Man X, then that's the place you're going to want to go to see that, is Cage's channel. I call him Cage, but his full name is Legion Cage, and that's twitch.tv/ spelled LEGIONKAJE. And then finally, our guests are the three Gaming Avengers, all streaming on the same channel, although they kind of do them in tandem. Might be one this day, all three the next day, different pairings, so they always have different things going on. And they're at twitch.tv/ TheGamingAvengerz, exactly like it sounds, except there's a Z at the end instead of an S. So if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, we would just like to suggest that you check these people out. Go to my website, ebc2021.com, and all the information is right there, including the upcoming schedule for not only my channel. I do include special events for other people in our community, things that are coming up. So you can check that all out there. All right, so I think that does it. We answered all the questions. Yes, Cage? We don't have any outstanding questions here?
One final one, actually,
Okay.
from Abby. And Abby asked, because this wasn't specifically connected to Mega Man, but she wants to know, is there a game that Ben feels that ties you guys, and maybe just all three of you maybe can answer or collaborate on that idea. Is there a game that ties you together as the Gaming Avengers? Like, you play it and it makes you think of the stream or each other?
Gotta be any Zelda game currently, right?
For me, it's specifically Majora's Mask. Anytime
Yeah.
I play Majora's Mask, I'm like, oh, Ben and Isaac, my stream buddies. But a lot of Zelda games, yeah. But for me, it's specifically Majora's Mask.
Well, and you three, as has been shown here in the last 2 hours, you all have very different game styles, very different approaches to how you game, and yeah, you come together, to beat games together that maybe you wouldn't be able to do otherwise apart. But all three of you bring something special to the table. What are you laughing at?
Oh no!
Jordan Sweet wants to know how many pairs of breakaway pants does Ben actually own?
Is that 10?
0.
10?
And I'm getting
It
you a
is
pair of breakaway pants.
0.
Ben, I'm getting you a pair for your birthday, which is tomorrow
Oh my god!
or the day after.
MegaMan 10 pairs of breakaway pants.
Yes.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, so obviously, if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, there are a lot of inside jokes that we've covered here that are relative to our community that you may not understand. First of all, it's Ben's birthday every day.
Yes.
He got married to Boozer many years ago.
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Yes,
That
you
is a
did.
lie.
And
Don't lie, Ben.
He still has issues professing his love.
yes, exactly. It's
Very shy.
But I mean, these are facts, and we can't change them. Legio is the creator of facts, and he.
Malaysia was the best man at the wedding.
There's
There you go.
photographic evidence of this, so I mean,
And I'm not going to bring up a specific hashtag that is no longer in use, but the breakaway pants are definitely still in play, mostly because we know that is Ben's favorite style of lower clothing wear. Like just,
Yes.
breakaway pants all day long,
Mhm.
every day. Sweats, to be exact.
Yeah.
Ben is a good sport. We mess with him all the freaking time. I mean, like,
Takes it all in
I'm
stride.
honestly surprised he hasn't like poisoned us all by now with as much as we fuck with him.
Oh yeah.
There's something coming. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I can't wait. All right. So, in any case, my name is Scotty, EBC. My co-host is Legion Cage, also known as Kage, pronounced imperfectly. And our guests this evening have been the three Gaming Avengers, Ben, Abby, and Isaac. Check them out on their Twitch channel. It's a fantastic time. And I really appreciate everyone joining us for the Arcade Nostalgia Memories podcast. Adios, folks. Thank you very much for joining us, and good night. All right, for those of you that are still with us here for the live recording broadcast of the Arcade Nostalgia Memories
we weren't
podcast.
supposed to wave yet.
No, you're supposed to wave.
Wait at the end of the,
Okay.
the end of the
What the fuck, man?
audio recording.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me go over to this
I
thing
was
here.
like, oh no, we went too soon. Yeah.
No, we didn't. We all literally were fine, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, Ben, you're fucking everything up, man.
it's a good thing it's your birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of birthdays, Ben's birthday is every day, and we celebrate that in many, many ways. But Abby only has one birthday a year, and her birthday is in 4 days. So,
Yeah.
so Abby, I have something special for you. Me and Cage
Uh-oh.
have something special for you that I
Uh-oh.
wanted you to see this because we're not recording this on your birthday, so we're gonna have to do it today.
Right.
This is
Okay.
this is for you, Abby, for your birthday.
Oh God, is it on stream? Do I need to see it on stream?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking. I'm terrified. It hasn't come up yet. I'm terrified.
It's your birthday today.
Oh. Huh?
Oh dear. The screen just went black. I'm scared. I have to turn the audio on.
Is yours. Destiny awaits. So share toast with your closest mates. It's your birthday today. It's your birthday today. Grab your goodie bags. Open your gifts. Blow out your candles!
Oh, yeah, there you go.
By advertising on
Hold on, let me
YouTube,
get
I
out of
catch
this
the
here.
eye
There we
of
go.
my ideal customers at the right time.
There you
I'm
go,
sorry
Abby.
it's misspelled, but they only had Abby with a Y. So
That's okay. That's totally okay.
So happy birthday, Abby. You're gonna be
Oh, thank you.
35,000 coming up here in 4 days, right?
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. If you do a little bit of searching, you can find that on your interwebs. That is a
Got it.
thing. But yes, we wanted to help celebrate your birthday a little bit early here.
Oh, thank you.
And then one more thing, we're going to say goodbye to our guests now. You all can of course stick around while we do some other things here. I wanted to play this at the end of
Uh-oh.
my broadcast here because I was very thoroughly impressed with my brother and what he came up with in recent days, which like you're probably familiar at this point now with me and the type of content that I produce, and you've maybe seen things not only like the intro videos that I've created myself and the trailers, the audio dramas that have come to fruition with the help of the great actors in our community. But you probably haven't seen a lot of the content that my brother has produced.
Mhm.
Now, some of that it has been available for quite some time. And Joel put in, yeah, we've got the Twitch link for Star Road Game Cafe. Put in your link tree for me there so everybody can go to and check out all of the stuff that he's got going on. I just don't have the Linktree link available at the moment. And the reason I say that is because he has a YouTube page, and he's got I'm sorry, Star Road Game Cafe is my brother Joel. He's got quite a bit of content on there, including things that we created a year ago where his concept was F60G, first 60-minute games, where we were basically roasting and reviewing games in the first 60 minutes of gameplay, and it just absolutely is hilarious. And he created and he showed on some of his streams more recently compilation that he created of the best bits out of those. But if you just want to sit and chill and have a good time, I suggest watching some of those where we did Final Fantasy VII and the Resident Evil, and I think it was Resident Evil 7, Evil Within. We did Nier Automata and a couple others. We're just sitting there basically for 60 minutes coming up with as many one-liners as we can and roasting the games, and it was such a great time. But he, that's the part and parcel with the content that he's had in mind this whole time, which is things that he wanted to produce and put out there to the internet and Twitch more specifically. As this is the content he's producing. Some of it's music related, some of it's band related, some of it's gaming related, and everything else. So I'm gonna play here an analysis that he just did of Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, and he posted it to his YouTube. It's not too long. It's about 10 or 12 minutes long. And I thought he did an excellent job of putting that content together, presenting his personal analysis of that game. And I know he's got more of that in the works, where he's going to take a game and in 10, 12 minutes, just do an analysis and say, here's what this game is like. Maybe you want to go check it out based on this criteria. In addition to, we're going to be rebooting the, not F60G, it's now going to be F30G, where we take about 30 minutes to roast and criticize a game just based on the first 30 minutes of gameplay. And there's other, now that the studio is finished and we've basically got everything pretty much set up the way we want it to be able to do not only pre-recorded content, but live shows and things like that, both on Twitch and on Discord. There's going to be much more of that kind of content coming out from both of our sources and for various different venues, different interests and things like that. So yeah, just go, he posted the link there, his link tree. That's all of his links to various things, including not only his Twitch, but his all of the things with Along Came a Spider, which is his band, and his YouTube, and all of the social media connections and all that. We are both, along with the Gaming Avengers and Cage, council members on the Conflux, which is our new Discord. Let me put that in the chat real quick here. If you have not joined, you're certainly welcome to stop on by. That is our new Discord server, the Conflux, where we basically all came together, and that's just our community server that is very comprehensive in showing a lot of different interests and things, not only gaming, but other things that people are interested in. So I'm going to play my brother's analysis of Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, and say goodbye to our guests for this evening, and then I'll come back, just me, for the coming attractions further on the EBC channel. So thank you, Gaming Avengers, for joining us. I really appreciate you. And Cage, my co-host.
Thanks for having us.
And yeah. It's been a wonderful time. I appreciate y'all. See you guys later, and I'll be back after this playthrough for coming attractions on EBC. All right? Let me get this back here.
Phoenix released Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier, a mobile game that is a free-to-play battle royale. Although the game has not given us much backstory yet, aside from a few references and cutscenes, the setting is supposed to take place 30 years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. The premise being that Soldier, Shinra's elite militia, is established by selecting the best of the best out of all the players. It's difficult to consider any particular thing that happens in-game as canon because of the gameplay style. So it might be better to view the game more so for what it is, a battle royale. One that appeals to people who enjoy the setting, world, and combat of Final Fantasy VII Remake. My first impressions of news of this game was biased, as I'm not a huge fan of battle royale games. And I'm more eagerly awaiting news of Final Fantasy XVI and VII Remake Part 2. But I was shocked to find how much effort Square has put in to appeal to fans of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. I've found the game to be fun and exciting overall, although I have my gripes, so this video will be a healthy mix of good and bad. First things first, if you are planning on trying this game or have just recently started playing, I need to emphasize how helpful a controller is. Let's be honest, even if you're an experienced mobile gamer, touchscreen controls are subpar at best. At worst, it's a logistical and mechanical nightmare for many reasons. If you were wondering if First Soldier was also on PC, console, or even able to be ran through an emulator without jumping through complicated hoops, no. The answer is no. And if that discouraged you from playing, I wouldn't blame you, not one bit. But I'd still recommend giving it a try. Give it a shot on your phone, if you have a compatible controller. I've found that a PS4 controller made the game way more enjoyable. Not just because it's easier to control the camera and your character, but also because you'll quickly realize going up against players who aren't using a controller will give you less of a challenge, because their reflexes and movements are limited. Being on the other end of that means you'll likely be engaging someone who is using a controller and they have the advantage over you. Which brings me to gameplay. Like most Battle Royale games, you'll find yourself descending into a place of your choosing on a large map, in this case, Midgar. Once grounded, you'll be traversing the map while a circle slowly closes in toward a center point, where any remaining players duke it out for the title of Last Player Standing. Getting further in these matches means more experience points. You can gain experience from multiple instances, such as completing small tasks and destroying monsters, but it's primarily based in your placing in the match and factors such as how many players have you killed. First Soldier seems to be a shooter first and an RPG second. While the game has you firing an assortment of weapons, you can also melee, summon, use materia, heal, ride vehicles, ride a chocobo, and a few other fun things along the way. I'd like to praise Square for making it a priority to include notable locations and points of interest in the FF7 universe, such as the church, Seventh Heaven, Don Corneo's mansion, and a few others. And wow, the attention to detail with these spots is amazing. There are a lot of spaces on the map that are either low-fidelity, memory-saving eyesores, or simply barren, hollow, boring spots with not much to see or do. But you can really feel the accuracy and the respect shown to the points of interest. That got me excited to see what other hidden gems are within reach. It also lets my imagination wander, in terms of what other maps they may or may not add in the future. I love to picture myself starting a match somewhere like the Forgotten City, or Junin, or even Costa del Sol. I'm probably just dreaming here, but I have hope that if they add another map, it would be exciting to explore. You can briefly customize a starting character, and there are many accessories and customizations that mean absolutely nothing, in terms of gameplay or combat, that is. But it's a gacha game at its core, so I don't expect anything else. I just tend to focus more on how fun the game is overall rather than aesthetics. Although I do enjoy the character classes. You can change these at any time between matches, and all of them have advantages that make them unique from one another with upgradable abilities. Currently, we are about 2 weeks into Season 2, and we have a warrior, a sorcerer, a ninja, a monk, a ranger, and the latest addition to the roster, Dragoon, who, for example, can leap high up and then soar around at a generous distance. These classes are subjective in terms of what functions best for you personally, but I've found every one of them to be interesting in one way or another. So, what about the guns? There are currently 6 types of standard firearms you can find scattered all over the map, with some variations among them. There's assault rifles, light machine guns, submachine guns, sniper rifles, shotguns, and handguns. There's also a handful of flashier, more interesting, and overpowered weapons you can obtain from certain rare chests, for example. The guns you'll find are going to be color-coded, starting with normal, or white, rare, or blue, epic, or purple, and legendary, or gold, each one having more firepower than the last. You can upgrade these in vending machines found across the map, some of which can provide you with potions or materia as well. The vending machines charge you gil, which you can obtain in the match by fighting monsters on the map. More difficult foes drop more gil. I honestly enjoy the fact that you can purchase these things as well as find them in crates and chests. It gives the game variety in how you choose to strategize. Different players have different approaches to how they can out-survive 75 players in an online arena. But on that note, the matches start with 75 players. I've very seldom come across having to face more than 2 or 3 other players at the same time. More often than not, it's going to be you versus one other player because of how large the map is, distancing your encounter rate. Although that's not necessarily a bad thing, as it gives you time to hunt down materia and weapons and explore a little bit. Even toward the end game, you might ideally picture 5 or 6 people duking it out in a chaotic battle in the last fraction of the map that hasn't closed in yet. Well, not quite. Most of my endgame experiences were me sneaking around trying to find the last 2 players, one of which is hiding somewhere, not moving till they have to, and another player perched up high waiting to get a headshot on you. At least it seemed that way. I've lost many matches that way, or the other way. The way where you encounter slow, laggy instances during combat. I'm playing on a decent phone with pretty darn good Wi-Fi, and it doesn't seem to be enough. It can get pretty frustrating dealing with that and wondering what you can do to make the game lag less. Perhaps the game itself needs better servers. It seems to happen most when 2 players start fighting each other, meaning you're liable to have your screen freeze up for up to a few seconds at a time, which can mean death in a game like this. Not everyone can have amazing internet connection or a brand new mobile device, meaning that there are probably a lot of people out there who want to play this game but simply can't, or kind of can, but aren't enjoying it because of game-breaking experiences, which is all the more reason to give it to us on consoles and PC. But we'll see where it goes from here. And in the meantime, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that I've been having fun with it, outside of the slowdowns. I think it's exciting to ride a motorcycle or summon a chocobo. Not this thing. This thing handles like a tank. If you've ever played Halo, picture driving the Warthog, except one tire is flat, and it can't go over 14 miles an hour. And also it's drunk. Not a great option if the circle is closing in or you need to make a quick getaway move. So, how's the materia? If I'm being honest, it feels a little cramped and tight to use, especially in a tight space, but it's not too difficult to get used to with a little practice. You can upgrade to 3 levels of materia by simply picking up more of the same materia. It's easy to grasp, but an efficient leveling system. You can hold 3 different kinds. For example, I found it useful to keep ice as a materia because it has a little bit of a range and provides support by making the other player move away from it. If you're in close proximity with another player, you're going to want to melee or use a shotgun, but the melee attack seems to be harder for players to avoid. Or if you prefer to surprise attack people, you can use parkour to run up walls and get to higher ground. All of it seems fun to toy around with at the very least. So what do I think? I love it, but also I don't at the same time. It's a well thought out and unique spin on Battle Royale that every Final Fantasy VII fan needs to try at least once. But I can't help but wonder why it's not on another platform, and I wish everyone could enjoy the game without worrying about their device or a controller. But the game is still fairly new, so I'm holding out hope for some improvements and incentives to keep playing. I've enjoyed it so far, more than I initially thought I was going to. What would you like to see happen with First Soldier? What would you improve? Tell me down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Thanks for watching.
I will never be a memory.
All right, so there you have it. Yeah, I also thought it was extremely well done. So looking forward to more of those. All right, so coming attractions on EBC. Tomorrow night, our regular public domain movie night is going to feature Kansas City Confidential, a kind of a mix between a film noir and a western. You probably haven't heard about it. It's not very well known, but I found it interesting, so you might want to check it out. That's tomorrow here on the EBC channel at 7 p.m. Then, immediately following that at 9 p.m., head over to the Conflux Discord for a mystery movie. I'm not going to talk about here because, yeah. Anyway, that starts at 9, and the the Conflux Discord. Let me put one more link for you in the chat. There we go. No, that's not how that works. There we go. That's better. And nothing else this week because I'm wrapping up a lot of IRL projects, and I'm kind of taking the rest of the week off. Monday, March 14th, which is a week from tomorrow, our regular public domain movie night again. Love Laughs at Andy Hardy, starring a very young Mickey Rooney. Great fun, nice comedy, and a lot of little built-in stuff that if you haven't seen it, it's great fun. So that's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on EBC on Twitch. And then, as I've been doing, following that immediately, 9 p.m. in the Conflux Discord, a movie that won't fly on Twitch, They Live, from 1988, I believe, or 1978, one of the two, 1988, I think. Yeah, a nice grim story about the reality of everything around us. Because it's all true. Everything they put in that movie is exactly true. There's not a false thing in it. So anyway, yeah, so that wraps everything up. And let me do this. We're going to raid Optimus Crime, I think. Let me make sure he's still on. Optimus Crime. Man, Optimus Crime. There we go. Alrighty. Thank you very much. We'll see you later. The next episode of RCADE is probably going to be in 2 weeks, I want to say on the 20th. But check the schedule on the website, and probably within a week or so I'll have that firmed up. Can't say who the guest is yet. We are still trying to confirm everything. But yeah, check us out later, and I don't know. Maybe we'll have some fun. Maybe it's just a bunch of flinging poo on the wall and seeing what sticks. But yeah, we'll see ya. Hopefully, maybe, possibly. I don't know. Hey, don't do anything I wouldn't do because I'm not going to do that shit. Take it to the bank. Adios. See ya. Bye.